Hello class. Today I'm going to be looking at your replays and guessing your elo, but that's not all. I'm going to make this educational. We'll review the good and bad plays that make me think someone is high or low elo and why those plays are good or bad. We'll be looking at the main format for competitive singles, the Scarlet and Violet overused tier. The top of the ladder is typically in the 2000s or 2100s, and the bottom of ladder is 1000 elo. Before we jump into it though, let's make the rules of this game perfectly clear. First of all, every elo indicator on typical Showdown replays has been wiped before I ever look at the replay. This includes medals that show if a player is top 100, top 30, or top 3. Now, that being said, I do have some information beyond just watching the battle. I have the full team of the viewer who submitted the replay. I know all the sets, EVs, everything. This is so I can provide more insightful battle commentary. I might say, oh, your Moltres should have used U-turn here, but what if the Moltres doesn't have U-turn? For me to give good advice, I need to know the team. But how well or poorly built the team is can also give me a hint as to the viewer's elo, and that information is fair game. I might also recognize the name of the player or their opponent, and if I faced them before on ladder and saw their elo then, that may give me a hint as to their elo in this battle. That information is also fair game. Now, you might say, Pink Across, this seems kind of unfair. Couldn't you just decide to review replays with players you recognize? Well, no. All of the replays I'll review were picked by another PokeTuber, Tenebrosite. He chose what would be featured, and I have no idea what his thought process was. It might be to trick me with low elo players that had a surprisingly good game. It might just be replays he found funny. He might have even picked completely randomly. I don't know. I had zero control over that process. For each replay, I'm going to guess the exact elo of the viewer who submitted it, and if I'm within 50 points higher or lower, I'll count that as a win. Alright, enough introduction, let's get into game 1. Guessing the elo of Gastrodon is cool. They're running a pretty standard sticky web team for the most part, Custat Barrier Araquanid, Black Glasses Terra Dark Kingambit, interesting booster attack Iron Treads with Terra Rock and Stone Edge, modest choice specs Enamorus, Metal Coat Goldengo, and Air Balloon Blaziken. Nothing about this team is really screaming low ladder to me. It seems decent. And looking at the opponent's team, for the most part, it looks like a standard Glimmora Hyper offense, but the Mimikyu is certainly unusual, and Latias is a bit odd as well, making me think we might be in low ladder. Those two often aren't seen at higher elos. Now, of course, I'm guessing the elo of Gastrodon is cool, not Marnie and Morpeko, but players often match up against players at similar elo ratings, so I'd be a fool not to consider the team and plays of the opponent. Alright, now getting into the game, Enamorus is a decent lead against Glimmora. Definitely don't want to activate Toxic Debris, so a special attacker makes sense. Glimmora here is just going to go for the Stealth Rock, which makes sense. And it'll get sacked on turn 2. Fair play on both sides. So far, pretty solid playing. Latias enters, Enamorus is going to exit for Goldengo, and Latias is going to instantly Terra Steel and go for a Calm Mind. Super early Terra is definitely an indicator of low ladder, and Gastrodon is cool decides to respond with Nasty Plot Goldengo. This is not a great response. Latias with stored power wins these every time with very minimal chip. Kingambit probably would have been the better play here. Instant Terra Dark to avoid the Aura Sphere KO, and then you can destroy Latias. You've got to respond very quickly to these stored power sweepers. So Goldengo goes for a somewhat effective Shadow Ball, and it's going to be obliterated by that stored power. Gastrodon is cool, then brings in the Araquanid, very obviously going for the Custat Berry Endure strategy, trying to go for Endeavor. So using Endure first so it survives the stored power. Opponent seems to predict that with the Roost, but then they just go for a Calm Mind. That was a really bad play there from the opponent. Endure works like Protect, where if you use it consecutively it fails. So Latias really should have taken advantage of that turn to go for stored power and just finish off the Araquanid. But it does go for Roost, and it gets the Key Berry activating, so opponent's still in a strong spot here. This is looking rough for Gastrodon is cool. Then in comes Blaziken. So Gastrodon is cool, goes for a close combat predicting Roost, and gets it right. So this was a decent play, basically dealing with a 50-50 here, because if Latias used Roost as Blaziken protected, that was basically game over. Mimikyu enters after the death of Latias, and in comes King Gambit to deal with it. That's a fine play. You want to keep Blaziken healthy to deal with the opposing King Gambit. Mimikyu going for the play rough there, Adamant Life Orb by the look of that damage, and Mimikyu is going to take one hit there and lose its disguise. Shadow Sneak kills here, and it will just go for that. To revenge kill, we see Enamorous come in. And I would say that's optimal. Its modest specs Earth Power does more to King Gambit than booster attack Iron Tread's Earthquake, so more likely to prevent a potential Swords Dance. And then a baffling play, the opponent bringing in Iron Boulder. So Enamorous dies when it enters on Stealth Rock next, and it's locked into an attack. So the opponent could have just brought in King Gambit, used Sucker Punch, and forced the kill, but instead they're deciding to sack Iron Boulder and Iron Moth. Now, I'm getting that they're probably trying to just get Supreme Overlord boost, but it would have been really nice to keep Iron Moth alive. Could have forced Blaziken to use Flare Blitz or Close Combat, allowing their Sucker Punch to kill. So definitely not a great play there from the opponent. Gastrodon is cool, brings in Blaziken, and at this point, it's pretty much good game. All you have to do is click Close Combat, and that's it. Terra has been used. This King Gambit dies. Sucker Punch won't kill Blaziken. This should be good game. But King Gambit goes for Sucker Punch, and Gastrodon is cool, goes for Swords Dance. So all you had to do was Close Combat here. Presumably, Gastrodon is cool is thinking that Sucker Punch kills their Blaziken, and that's why they're playing these Swords Dance games. But this is a complete throw. If the opposing King Gambit goes for Swords Dance at any point in the sequence, Gastrodon is cool probably loses. Now, it ends up working out, but those 3 Swords Dances were totally unnecessary and greatly risked the game for no reason. So this game had a lot of major mistakes. Some plays were solid, but Hyper Offense is a rather simple archetype, and it can hide poor playing. That's why I often encourage newer players not to use too much Hyper Offense. It can sort of cause Pokemon brain rot, because it doesn't force you to develop certain battling skills. That endgame in particular, clicking Swords Dance over and over with Blaziken, as I said, I expect Gastrodon is cool, thought Sucker Punch would kill, but to think that you must not even have an emerging understanding of typical damage rolls, or it might be a lack of type chart knowledge, maybe not realizing that Blaziken resisted Sucker Punch. This tends to be something people figure out quite early on. That being said, some turns went well, and neither of these players have awful teams, so I don't think they're at the absolute bottom of the ladder either. For Gastrodon is cool, my guess is 1200 elo. And let's see if I'm right. Gastrodon is cool is 1299. So I wasn't too far off. I did correctly guess it was low ladder, but it was a bit lower than I thought. I'm honestly surprised near 1300 that we'd have an end game like that. But wow, I really am surprised. But, you know, Gastrodon is cool. If you are watching this, keep at it. I've had plenty of bad end games as well. And you'll learn more damage rolls or get more familiar with the type chart. Whatever caused that, you'll learn it as you go on. So keep going, keep having fun. We all have games like this sometimes, even when you do learn better. Okay, before we move on to the next game, I want to acknowledge what some of you may be thinking. This sounds scripted. And yes, most of this is scripted. My battle commentary is written out before because I want to be providing concise and accurate commentary that's not just off the cuff. My ELO guesses are also scripted. I spent a while thinking them over. I'm not just throwing out a number. However, my reactions are not scripted at all. I truly did not know the ELOs, and the audio you hear is my genuine first-time reaction to seeing if I was right or not. All right, that out of the way, next up we've got a submission from Henry again, who's facing Relic Stone. For those that don't know, Relic Stone is an alt account of Storm Zone, one of the best singles players in the world. That being said, Storm Zone has gone on some epic ladder tilts before, so we're definitely not in low ladder, but mid ladder is still a possibility. And of course, I'm not guessing the ELO of Relic Stone, aka Storm Zone. We're looking at Henry again. They've got a pretty standard offense team: Choice Scarf Glamora, a Calm Mind Taunt Iron Valiant, an Assault Vest Body Press Curem, an Earth Power Rocky Helmet Landorus, Standard Libero Cinderace, and Black Glasses Low Kick King Gambit. This team is pretty solid, and it's very modern. This Curem set is a trendy new tech, so Henry again is clearly a regular player that keeps up with the meta. First impressions are indicating high elo, but let's look at the game. Henry opting to start with Kurem here. Very solid lead, matches up well into a lot of Storm Zone's team. And instantly switching into Landorus, as the Great Tusk goes for a close combat. So Henry somehow knew or suspected that was a close combat Great Tusk. Maybe they've faced each other before. Bit of an odd play otherwise, and Landorus goes for just a safe U-turn there, popping Heatran's air balloon and bringing in Kurem, which threatens the Earth power. Heatran going for Stealth Rock, and Henry going with a bit of an over-prediction there with the Ice Beam. Heatran now gets a Magma Storm off, but Henry is not going to make the same mistake twice, going for a nice Earth power there. Latias comes in, and Kurem is going to be sacked to Draco Meteor. No great switch in there. Kurem is probably the best sack, and it gives a very nice court change opportunity, which Henry spots right away. Latias is going to flip turn, confirming it is not choiced. Good information to get. And out comes the Great Tusk. Henry goes into Landorus, presumably trying to punish Rapid Spin, gets hit with an Ice Spinner, and dies. So if that Great Tusk is Jolly, that was an absolute maximum roll to kill. So we might be looking at Adamant Choice Scarf. Kingambit comes in to take advantage of being locked into Ice Spinner, and doubling out. So I'm definitely thinking they've played each other before. Storm Zone, knowing that Kingambit did not have Iron Head, but really good Glamora double. Goes for the Sludge Wave. Great Tusk, though, now threatening a big Headlong Rush. Glamora using Terra Fairy to get out of having something either die or take a bunch of damage from Headlong Rush. A good Terra. I'd say that was a solid play. Now out comes the Latias, bring in Kingambit, and it's a Psychic Noise, so that's got to be a huge relief. No Aura Sphere. That was a risk, but it was a good risk. And then Glamora enters, perhaps scouting for a potential Terra, potential Aura Sphere on the flip turn. A solid play as well. Weezing comes in to remove Toxic Spikes, and then there's a double to Samurott. Glamora just going to go for that Sludge Wave, and that looks like a quite bulky Assault Vest set based on the damage. Cecil's Edge to kill makes a lot of sense. Might as well get up a spike while you do it. And to revenge kill, we see Iron Valiant come out. So going for a Calm Mind first, that's a fair play. Get you a bit more damage on Weezing with Shadow Ball. And is just going to finish off the Samurott with Moonblast. As expected, out comes the Weezing. Iron Valiant will be able to Shadow Ball here, get about half off. And then the Weezing is just going to finish it off with Sludge Bomb. We see Cinderace enter here. That makes sense. You definitely don't want to bring in Kingambit without Iron Head. Pyro Ball, going to do good damage, but not finishing it off. That does confirm the Weezing is defensive, though, so Kingambit will outspeed. There's the Pyro Ball. And U-turn will absolutely finish off this Latios. So Kingambit comes in here. Now, this is a bit of a position for a read. Will the Weezing go for Will-O-Wisp? Kingambit stays in for the Kowtow Cleave, and it is going to get burned. Now, switching into Cinderace there would have been obviously better, but this isn't as much of a disaster as you might think. Henry has a way out here. So after the Pain Split, Pyro Ball now kills, which it did not before the Kowtow Cleave. So Weezing goes down, and in comes the Ogerpon. Stealth Rock damage implies that this is Choice Band. And of course it uses Terra, since Storm Zone hasn't used it yet, and Cinderace gets valuable chip with Sucker Punch, before going down to that Ivy Cudgel. And Kingambit comes out. Here's the final bit of the game. That Ivy Cudgel damage there, confirming Choice Band. Kingambit tanks it, obviously, and Henry wins with a Kowtow Cleave. That was an incredibly clean game. Lots of great choices on both sides. Excellent stuff. It really just came down to who made more correct reads, and Henry came out on top this time. If I saw this game randomly happen on the ladder, I would think at least mid-1900s, easily could be 2000s. However, I also need to consider that Henry might be submitting a game they're really proud of, and there aren't very many players in that top ladder level, so I'm guessing Henry is a little lower than their playing this game would imply. So I'm going to guess 1915 ELO. That seems about right. All right, let's see if I'm close. They are 1827. Once again off, this time overestimating. Henry, that was an incredibly played game. You should be very proud of that. you can definitely get higher than 1827 if you can pull off a match like that. So very nicely done, and keep at it. That was great stuff. If you want to be featured on a video like this in the future, make sure you're subscribed and have the bell on. I'll put out a YouTube post linking you to a Google form where you can submit your replays. Now, for the final game, we've got Glizword versus Cannonverg. Glizword is bringing a Choice Scarf Great Tusk, Libero Cinderace with a Will-O-Wisp, Assault Vest Alomomola, Defensive Zapdos, Defensive Galarian Slowking, and the rarely seen Choice Band Iron Valiant. Definitely an interesting squad, seems quite well built, no indicators of low elo from the team. Getting into it, we have an Iron Valiant lead, which is okay. I'd say Slowking is better here because Iron Valiant might just die to Dragapult, but Glizword goes into Alomomola to escape that possibility. That U-turn is choice banded damage, and this replay is from a little while ago when Terra Blast was legal, so probably a Terra Blast Ghost Dragapult. But Cornerstone goes for an aggressive Swords Dance. Slowking will live the Ivy Cudgel as it's physically invested and goes for an Ice Beam. Glizword has to sack something and chooses Slowking. I disagree. Zapdos seems like a much less valuable team member here with a fully healthy Tinglu and Raging Bolt. But now the opponent has to sack, and they choose to sack Cornerstone. Another mistake of a sack. If you look at the opponent's team, they now really don't have anything great to deal with Assault Vest Alomomola. And the fact that they bring in Corviknight indicates that they really don't have anything they want to bring in on this Alomomola. Glizword brings in Cinderace. Great play here. Hits everything hard. Very surprised to see the opponent leave Corviknight in when they had a fully healthy Raging Bolt. Corviknight taking a ton of damage and getting burned. Obviously, really nice there. Cinderace, hard switching out. Really odd to not U-turn there and take free damage. Choice Scarf Iron Moth really isn't a thing, and we see based on that damage, that is choice specs. So the flip turn comes out, good stuff there, and bringing in Iron Valiant. And as the Tinglu switches in, Iron Valiant opts to knock off. I'm not a fan of this knockoff. There was pretty close to a 0% chance that Dragapult gets swapped in here. I would have recommended just going for close combat. Iron Moth died to close combat as well, so there was no risk there. And even if Dragapult did enter, it's not really a threat unless it uses Terra Blast Ghost. And if it does, Great Tusk basically wins because it kills everything with Terra Ground Headlong Rush once Corviknight dies. A good middle ground play doesn't necessarily cover every single option, it just optimizes risk and reward as much as possible. And I would say close combat was, in general, a much stronger play there. So Glizword goes into Alomomola for a bit of regen health, a solid play there, and then goes back into Iron Valiant. Now here, there is a very solid Spirit Break opportunity, and Glizword is just going to go for the Spirit Break. Hit everything, really no reason not to do that. And Corviknight is officially gone, so Great Tusk is looking amazing. Dragapult enters to revenge kill Iron Valiant, and it goes for Terra Blast, and that is basically good game. Great Tusk now uses Terra Ground Headlong Rush and kills everything. Not necessarily a bad play from the opponent for going for that Terra Blast Ghost. They didn't know the Great Tusk was Choice Scarf, and it isn't a common set, but at this point, they have lost the game. Zapdos going down really did not matter. Glizword switching a bit just to be safe, but at this point, Great Tusk really just wraps up the game from here. There is absolutely nothing the opponent can do. So that was mostly a well-played game. There were no major mistakes or blunders, but there were a lot of non-optimal plays, sacking the wrong Pokemon, going for questionable middle ground plays like that knockoff with Iron Valiant. And the opponent made some mistakes as well, like sacking their Ogerpon Cornerstone and letting their Corviknight eat a Pyro Ball when they had a fully healthy Raging Bolt. Now, of course, we're not guessing the opponent's elo, but it does tell us around where Glizword may be. I'd say Glizword's playing was about 1700s level, probably a little bit on the higher end, so I'm going to guess 1760 elo. Let's see if I'm right. Glizword's elo is 1639. There we have it, all three wrong. I'm definitely surprised by that. The teams on both sides look solid. Playing wasn't exactly ideal, but it looked decent. I am surprised that this was a 1600s game. Nicely done in this one, Glizword. That was good stuff. This was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I wasn't wildly off on any of my guesses, but 0 for 3 is definitely not what I was going for. Still, I had a good time, and I hope you did as well. This is the first time I've done a video like this, so I'd really appreciate some feedback. Do you want me to do more of these? And if so, did you like the format? Would you rather I have a guest and face off against them rather than just trying to guess in a band of 100 elo? Should I expand the range I consider correct or make it more narrow? Do you think I have too much information? I could not ask for players' teams next time, or only pick replays with players whose usernames are unfamiliar to me. This is also my first video with the new microphone, so let me know if you like the sound better, worse, or if you couldn't tell. Any feedback is appreciated. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Class dismissed.